Every Sunday morning in 1967, a father and his son walked through the streets of New Orleans. They were heading to the biggest football stadium in the entire South. The boy held his father's hand tight as they approached the massive concrete structure. Tulane Stadium could hold 80,985 people. That's more people than lived in many small towns. Inside, the New Orleans Saints were about to play their very first game. The father and son found their seats. The crowd roared. The energy was electric. That stadium stood tall and proud for 54 years. It hosted some of the biggest games in football history. 3 Super Bowls, dozens of Sugar Bowls, thousands of unforgettable moments. Then, in 1980, they tore it all down. Gone. Completely erased. Today, there's a recreation center where legends once played. How does a stadium that big just disappear? And why would anyone destroy something so important to a city? The story begins in the 1920s, when football was becoming huge in the South. Tulane University had a really good football team called the Green Wave. Fans loved watching them play, but the stadium they had was too small. People couldn't get tickets. So regular folks in New Orleans did something special. 6,000 citizens donated $300,000 to construct a football stadium. Not rich people, not the government, just everyday New Orleanians who loved their team. The stadium opened on October 23, 1926, when Tulane played Auburn University. The whole city came out to celebrate. There were parades, speeches, music, pure excitement everywhere. The stadium had a capacity of around 35,000, with stands on both sides. That was massive for 1926. Most stadiums back then only held 10,000 or 15,000 people. It was built on an old plantation where sugar was first granulated in the United States. Because of that history, it became the perfect home for something called the Sugar Bowl. But 35,000 seats wasn't enough for long. Football was exploding in popularity. More people wanted tickets. The stadium needed to grow. In 1937, the North End stands were added, increasing the capacity by 14,000. 2 years later, the stadium was double-decked, increasing the capacity to 69,000. The final addition came in 1947, when the stadium was enlarged to seat 80,985 fans. By 1947, Tulane Stadium was the largest football stadium in the entire South. Nothing else came close. The improvements kept coming. Permanent seats, better scoreboards, lights for night games, everything a modern stadium needed. For nearly 50 years, this stadium was the heart of New Orleans football. The first Sugar Bowl game was played at the stadium on January 1st, 1935. After that, the Sugar Bowl happened there every single year. College football's best teams played on that field. Fans packed the stands every New Year's Day. It became a tradition families passed down through generations. Then, in 1966, something amazing happened. New Orleans got an NFL team. The New Orleans Saints were born. But they needed a place to play. The new team looked around and chose Tulane Stadium as their home. On September 17, 1967, the Saints played their first game at Tulane Stadium against the Los Angeles Rams. An announced attendance of 80,879 filled the stadium. Nearly every seat was taken. The Saints lost that game 27-13, but fans didn't care. They had NFL football in New Orleans. That's all that mattered. John Gilliam returned the opening kickoff 94 yards for a touchdown in the franchise's first regular season game. The stadium absolutely erupted. That moment is still legendary in Saints history. The Saints played at Tulane Stadium from 1967 through 1974, 8 seasons. Hundreds of thousands of fans passing through those gates, making memories that would last forever. The stadium also hosted the biggest games in football. 3 of the first 9 Super Bowls were played there. In January 1970, 1972, and 1975. Super Bowl IV in 1970, Super Bowl VI in 1972, Super Bowl IX in 1975. The entire world was watching New Orleans, watching games played in that stadium, built by 6,000 regular citizens back in 1926. But by the early 1970s, problems were showing up. The stadium was getting old. The concrete was cracking. The steel was rusting. New Orleans' humid climate was eating away at the structure year after year. Plus, the city was building something new, something massive. The Louisiana Superdome, a giant domed stadium right downtown, climate-controlled, modern. Everything Tulane Stadium wasn't. The Saints played their last game at Tulane Stadium on December 8, 1974, against the Cardinals. The final game ever at the stadium was Super Bowl IX in January 1975. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Minnesota Vikings in cold, rainy weather. On August 4th, 1975, the day after the new Louisiana Superdome was opened, Tulane Stadium was condemned. Condemned. That's a harsh word. It means the building was declared unsafe. Upon appeal by the university, the older concrete and brick section was deemed fit to use. However, the newer metal upper deck was declared unsafe, having rusted badly due to 36 years of exposure to New Orleans' humid climate. So they removed the upper deck. The stadium that once held over 80,000 people now held much less. It stayed open for smaller events, high school football games, practice sessions, concerts. ZZ Top played Tulane Stadium during its worldwide Texas tour July 17, 1976. Fans rioted and threw objects at police officers, prompting Tulane to ban any future concerts on campus. That concert ban still exists today, over 45 years later. The end came quickly after that. The last game played in the stadium prior to its demolition was between New Orleans Catholic League teams Chalmette High School and Jesuit High School on November 3, 1979. On November 2, 1979, Tulane President Sheldon Hackney announced that the stadium would be demolished. The demolition started on November 18, 1979, and ended in June 1980. They tore down the whole thing. The concrete stands where families sat together for decades. The field where Tulane won championships, where the Saints played their first games, where 3 Super Bowls happened, all of it reduced to rubble. Tulane Stadium is now the site of a recreation and athletic center. If you visit Tulane University today, you can walk on the exact spot where 80,985 fans once cheered, but there's no stadium, no monument, no sign telling you what used to be there, just a gym and some rec fields. So why tear it down? Why not save it? The simple answer is money and practicality. The Superdome was new, modern, safe. It could host the Saints, Tulane football, the Sugar Bowl, and massive events like the Super Bowl. Keeping Tulane Stadium would have cost millions to repair properly. The rust damage was extensive. The humid New Orleans air had destroyed the metal structure over decades. Nobody wanted to spend that money on an old stadium when a brand new one existed downtown. But something was lost when they demolished Tulane Stadium. That stadium was built by the community. Regular people pooled their money together because they believed in something. They believed in their university, their team, their city. In 1973, a record number of 86,598 fans witnessed Tulane defeat LSU 14-0. That was the most people ever in the stadium. The last time Tulane and LSU played on Tulane's campus. Those 86,598 people were part of something special. They were there. They felt the energy, the noise, the excitement. You can't recreate that in a modern stadium with luxury boxes and corporate sponsors. It's just different. Tulane eventually came back home in 2014. They built Yulman Stadium right next to where the old Tulane Stadium stood. It holds 30,000 people, much smaller, but it's theirs. The Saints stayed in the Superdome, which is now called the Caesars Superdome. They're still there today, over 50 years later. The Sugar Bowl moved to the Superdome too, and never left. Everything that made Tulane Stadium special moved downtown to a bigger, better building. But that father and son who walked to the stadium in 1967, they remember. They remember what it felt like to be in that massive concrete bowl with 80,000 other people, all cheering together, all believing together. Those memories didn't get demolished. They live on in everyone who was ever there. Tulane Stadium stood for 54 years, built for $300,000 by people who cared, expanded to hold 80,985 fans, hosted 3 Super Bowls and countless legendary games. Then it was gone in less than a year. That's what happens when cities move forward. The old makes way for the new. Progress demands sacrifice. Sometimes what we lose is just an old building that needed too many repairs. Sometimes what we lose is a piece of our soul. Do you think they should have saved Tulane Stadium? Or was tearing it down the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the stadiums and places that shaped sports history.